You waiting for me, Eli? Happy Friday, man. Eli's waiting for me to turn off my Wi-Fi on my phone. I get that look from him.
All right. There we go. What's up, Will?
What's going on, man? Happy Friday.
Doing,
busy week, huh? A lot of cool stuff going on. Busy week. And I want to do this from the get-go because I always get that other stink eye from you, and I don't do this. It's just not my style. But here's the deal. If you're just now tuning in, if you'd like to find the Day 100 podcast, you can find it on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play. We live stream on YouTube and Facebook for your visual pleasure. I put on a mint. I'm like a thin mint today. Felt refreshing. we got a clean, cool cat on today, so I had to put this is a brand new shirt just for him. By the way, Carhartt Spring Collection is out.
Was that a Tiger King reference with that cool cat, man?
No.
Is that what that was?
What's Tiger King?
Oh, really?
Just saying. I'm apparently when people watching TV, I'm working.
Whatever. You're literally the first person that told me about Tiger King.
We got the boss on the
we
podcast.
Do.
That's why I'm saying I don't
Let's
watch
lock
Netflix.
it down. Let's lock it down.
So when he's watching me, no, I don't watch Netflix. Who's that? No, man. I'm working. I got a life, Eli. But I put on a brand new shirt for this cat. And I'm being serious. Carhartt's Spring Collection.
Nice.
Okay. It's out.
Not a sponsor.
Yet.
Who we got today? Who do we have the honor of having on the show today?
We have the man. You don't get bigger than this, man. And what a extraordinary guy. We've had the pleasure to get to know him for a little bit, and we were on his podcast yesterday, and just got to share a lot with the industry. But Chris Stuart is on today. He's Berkshire Hathaway Home Services CEO. We don't know where he came from, how he did it. He's a little too awesome to believe the story that's publicized. So we got to get him on this podcast to just get the real deal. But
that's right.
Chris, man, can you hear us? What's going on, man?
I got you guys. So glad to be here. Fired up. Man, I love that Carhartt Spring Edition, baby. Spring Collection.
Spring Collection. Right next to Victoria's Secret, just billboards is like me. On a Carhartt Spring Collection. I'm on to something. I need the support. We need sponsors. I'm on to something. So, Chris, hey, man.
I love it.
First and foremost, happy Friday. Appreciate you having us on yours, yesterday, and more than excited to get you on ours, because obviously the basic synopsis of ours is just going over people's literal day 100 and however early that goes into their childhood or early adulthood, what it looked like for them, and then obviously just telling the story of where we're at now. But just for some of our listeners that maybe aren't exposed to the real estate industry and maybe don't know quite who you are, can you give us some context on just what your responsibilities and your roles are right now and everything that coincides with what you do before we kind of back it up?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So first of all, thank you guys, both of you. Just been a pleasure to get to know you and really love your energy and spirit, and every chance I get to be around you guys is awesome. Always come away fired up, a little bit of laughter, a little bit of motivation and inspiration. So it's always a good time.
Right on.
Yeah. So in my current role as CEO of basically the Home Services Franchise Group. So we operate the Berkshire Hathaway Home Services Franchise Network, and then also the Real Living real estate franchise networks. And so collectively, we've got, nearly 60,000 agents around the world. The Berkshire Hathaway Home Services Network is about, probably pushing 52,000 maybe agents in more than 1,600 offices between the U.S., Canada, Western Europe, and Dubai. And so, my role is to run this network, create vision, create energy, create, tools and systems and deliverables, all in an effort to help, manifest more productivity and grow market share and grow our network for our real estate brokers and their agents.
Well, it's
and obviously
working, man.
Serve the customer, right? I mean, that's the end game, is to serve our customers, our real estate customers.
Well, and it's been competitive. We've been around for a little while. And just hearing like some of the bigger names with the Keller Williams and the Remaxes of the world, and a lot of people thought that, when Berkshire was first coming onto the scene, that, there wasn't laughs or anything like that, but there's been a lot of, wealthy people or organizations that try to kind of tackle this obstacle, but there's been a lot of respect behind, the ability for Berkshire to kind of withstand those early on storms with that and just not succumb to maybe some of those bigger hitters. And I'm sure that's a testament to a lot of the team that's behind it. And I think Warren Buffett might be on the team. I don't know.
He might have a hand in it.
I don't know if that guy's real, but Chris, I got to ask you, man. Like, have you seen that guy walking around? You shook that dude's hand. I mean, what's the deal with that? The only thing I've ever seen is a cardboard cutout.
That guy's the real deal. He's living, breathing, man. What an inspiration, and Mr. Munger too. Those guys. If you ever get an opportunity, I tell you that the shareholders meeting in Omaha, they do. Of course, they canceled it this year with the health situation going on, but that's quite the scene out there. Thousands, tens of thousands of people, and and Mr. Buffett and Mr. Munger are the key centerpieces of that. And it's a really special culture that absolutely helps influence the way that I think about my own role here as the CEO of this organization, and, leveraging, what they mean to the business world and trying to, embody that spirit and pour a little bit of that essence into what we're doing here is very, very special.
Well, it's a special brand, man. I think, when someone hears the words Berkshire Hathaway, everybody has something in their mind that they associate that with, right? Regardless of what your status is. That's one of the cool things about, Warren Buffett and the brand that Will and I personally like, man, is that, it speaks to the blue collar person as much as it does the high end luxury seller. Like, I think everybody has some sort of experience or feelings. And like with Warren Buffett, man, who doesn't like Warren Buffett, right? You never hear anyone talking shit about it. He don't have any haters, man. It's hard to say anything bad about that guy.
That's right.
Seems like it. I mean, I think so. And if we were looking at this, and look, everyone can see, Chris, you're a good looking dude. You've got that nice black on today. And like, from my background of just dealing with just gangs and stuff as a cop, I'm just imagining like just this underground of Berkshire being like the mob, right? And I'm like, all right, that's cool. And then like, hey, we've got to work hard for Chris. So Eli and I are kind of like the knockaround guys, trying to do some dirty work and impress Chris. So maybe one day we get to go meet Mickey or Frankie or whatever those dudes are called, AKA Warren, whatever they're calling him. And however we got to visualize it, we're going to make it work. But what an extraordinary responsibility. Just in our little history of Eli and I, being in business and what's open for us. It's really good to have a plan, right? Like, yeah, what's your 3-year goal? What's your 5-year goal? But then some things that unfold, the relationships you have, the opportunities that get creative, you couldn't have planned for it. You couldn't have imagined it unfolding like that. And it's just crazy how relationships build things. And we're still early on in our careers, but just to see where you're at, I'm so curious at like the relationships and opportunities and ironic pieces that maybe look like hardship, but it wasn't hardship, and really what unfolded to get you where you're at now. I'm so curious today to kind of dive into that. So let's dive right in. Let's kind of get back to, if you've got one, if you've had some time to think about it, but really, just early on in your adulthood or just within business. And did you have any breaking points, or when you think about it, what do you reflect on as far as what was that literal day one $0 for you, as far as back as you can see where this ladder started?
Yeah. It's good. So it's always fun. I don't know where I heard it, and I'm sure you guys have heard it many times, but it's people say that, it's hard to imagine all of the steps that you'll take in your career looking forward. But looking backwards, you see all the steps you've taken, and it's a perfect sequence of events to lead you to where you are. And I'm very much that case. The interesting thing is I born and raised in Dallas. And, grew up in Texas, went to Texas A&M. Was just, my grandfather graduated from there. So I was always, just dead set on being an Aggie. So I went to A&M, went down there and I studied biochemistry. And I really only studied that.
You don't know anything about this COVID, do you?
And I only did that
Don't just blow over. Listen, Chris, don't just blow over what you just said you studied during a time like this, and you got gold jewelry and black clothes on right now. You can't just blow right
I saw that ring
too,
man. I saw that ring too.
I'm paying attention, Chris. So biochemistry, COVID. I guess we'll do the COVID later if people are still listening. So I'm sorry. Oh, by the way, Eli's not a football fan. Texas A&M is a college. Aggies, it's a big honorable school, great football team.
Got it. That's like the oblong ball you throw and kick it. Yeah, I got you.
Something.
Okay, cool. I'm learning.
I digress.
All that stuff.
I'm learning.
Yeah. Oh man. So I didn't really know what I wanted to do professionally, but I enjoyed science academically, and actually at a career fair at A&M, I met these 2 recruiters that were there at the job fair recruiting for this company that was in systems integration and technology. And I just hit it off with these guys. They had an amazing energy, and they were telling me all about their company and what they did. And I didn't understand one word of what they were saying, but they said, hey, as part of the interview process, we fly you to New York City. I'd never been to New York City.
Wow.
I'm like a senior in college. I barely even been out of the state of Texas at this point in my life. And so I went through all the interview and that sort of thing, flew up to New York City. They offered me the job. And I'm like, I'm in. And I only took the job because it meant that I got to go and live and work in New York City. So I ended up grabbing an apartment with a few guys that they, new hires, we worked in the same place. And we moved to Hoboken, New Jersey, home of Frank Sinatra. You talking about Goodfellas. Home of Frank Sinatra.
It starts.
They
got you early.
It starts right there. The Illuminati starts right there, baby.
Oh, man.
So I grabbed this job. Now just context, okay? Completely in a bubble in College Station at A&M, just loving life, living the dream, and studying, science and all this other crap. So I go up to do this interview in New York City, and I remember sitting in the lobby. I'm on the 40th floor of this beautiful building downtown Manhattan. I'd never been there before. I'm 2 blocks off of Wall Street, and I remember sitting there for the first person to come get me. And I picked up a brochure of this company. I'm sitting in their lobby interviewing a job, and I'm reading this brochure, and I didn't understand anything in this brochure. I didn't know what any of the stuff meant. I at that moment, I realized, oh my God, what am I doing here? I don't even know what is
but
this.
I want to give the audience some context, right? I want to give them some context, because if you're going to take this as in like, hey, you can accomplish anything. I didn't know anything. You were also studying biochemistry. Right. So I feel like you got a big old brain in there, which I'm guessing it didn't matter what you wanted to dive into. Everyone had to study for that job. You read a pamphlet, you read a brochure, and I'm guessing like the rest is history. So just a testament to your brain power, Chris.
Yeah. And that was kind of it. Right. So it was all about the energy, the environment, the people. Obviously got that job, moved up there, worked with those guys. I actually transferred with that company out to Silicon Valley. And then ended up working left that company and ended up working at Oracle Corporation as a global account executive. And, Oracle is one of the most prestigious, software companies in the world.
So you learned this job
in the business.
Was it just a pamphlet, or like, so you actually learned what you were doing?
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I learned it. Absolutely, man. I was awesome at it. I love technology. Who knew?
Yeah.
Here was the crazy thing again about looking back. So this was the mid 90s, right? This was 1995 in New York, and then kind of got out to Silicon Valley full time in 98. So we were full fledged in the throes of the internet revolution.
Wow.
And here I was, a young professional, just literally earning my stripes from a professional standpoint, fresh out of college, learning everything at the same time the world was about the internet and its impact on the transformation of industries. And I was right at that intersection, and it just was completely happenstance in terms of taking that job out of school. Otherwise I could have been in an engineering firm, a lab. I could have been at a chemical engineering plant somewhere. I mean, who knows, right?
You could have been in Wuhan right now, man.
Well, right. But how were you so open-minded?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to like cut off your story, but I want to take it incrementally a little bit. And I'm sure some people are curious as into like all the college and the studying and what you did for your degree. When looking back, and you're just like, yeah, no, these recruiters, they were awesome. Like, listen, Chris, I've met a lot of awesome guys. That doesn't mean I'm going anywhere with them, right? So what allowed you to just like, cool, feel some good energy and you like him and you're, hey, I've never been in New York, might as well take an interview. But did you have any reluctancy or any doubt or did you talk to your parents and what were they thinking? Like, because it was just so far outside of the scope of what you had been studying, what allowed you to be so open-minded to, because I think a lot of stuff in life is energy. And I also think that there is some intelligence to reading an opportunity and taking advantage of that opportunity. But when you're looking back at that, what allowed you to be so outside the scope of what you had studied for so long to be able to just take that opportunity?
Yeah, a couple of things. It's a great question. I think a couple of things. Number one is my 2 role models and idols and inspirations were my mom and my grandfather. So I never knew my father. In fact, he's passed away now, but I never knew him. We never had a relationship at all. Saw him just my remembrance is just, one time in my whole life. In fact, I changed my legal last name when I turned 18 to my grandfather's name. So my maternal grandfather, my mom's father, I have his last name. I did that when I was 18.
Cool. Good for you.
He and my mom had me when she was 17. And she's just a hustler, worked 2 jobs her whole life to support us. or, during my, when I was younger. And she was just very resourceful. And my grandfather was very resourceful. My grandfather actually grew up as a tenant farmer in East Texas. That means that he and his family, they were given a little corner of this huge cotton farm to have their home and live. And in exchange for that, they were the labor on the farm.
Wow.
And they picked cotton. That's what they did. So he didn't even start school every year until November after the cotton harvest was done. So he started school late every year by 2 months just so he could pick cotton. And when he got old enough, he joined the Army and, went and fought in the war and came back, put himself through Texas A&M on the GI Bill, was an electrical engineer, worked only one job his whole life at the power company there in Dallas Power and Light. And so I just saw that, and I saw my mom, and I just knew, it didn't matter. Honestly, my whole career has been this way. It doesn't matter what you put in front of me. I have no reservations, no fear, no doubt. I I live by this mentality. You're either on the train or on the tracks.
And I love that.
I'm just on the train type of guy.
Yeah. And I love that. And I want to shed some light, because Chris, this is something I've gone through with myself, especially this past couple of years of doing the Marine Corps stuff and government work and police work. And then now I'm a realtor. What are you talking about? Right. But when I look at it, it makes perfect sense. But I had to be proud of who I was, be confident in who I was, but not place my entire identity behind a badge, behind an Eagle Globe and Anchor, behind something. And something I'm taking from you right now is I'm sure you worked your tail off. I'm sure biochemistry was extraordinarily hard, but you probably had like maybe that entrepreneurialistic thoughts of, and I see this in a lot of kids that come out of college. It's very one-dimensional. You get your degree, and then like that's what you are. And it sounds like you probably had a lot of fun in college and doing your biochemistry, but it didn't define who you are. You've always been like, if something feels like it's a good fit, you've got enough confidence that if you dive into it and be resourceful enough and learn it, that you can still go capitalize. And it's more about what you're diving into and enjoying it and capitalizing on it versus staying one-dimensional behind a degree and thinking that you just got to run that lane and run that play.
Yeah. And the other thing, so I would say my grandfather and my mother, just put so much, and my grandmother too, but so much fuel in my fire and wind in my sails. I just, been always unstoppable for my mindset from that standpoint. But here's the other thing, growing up, most of my young childhood, we lived in some apartments, this apartment complex, and none of us knew our dads. That was like the common denominator. We always joked that the only holiday we didn't celebrate was Father's Day, but we were, a bunch of young guys and kids growing up, and man, those are still some of my great friends to this day. And the one thing that, at least for me, about those experiences is, even if I was a guy that had, a little money in my pocket, because maybe my mom, or my grandfather maybe gave me a, $10 bill and my guys didn't have it. That, to me, I don't want to go down to McDonald's if I'm the only one that can eat. All right. Yeah. So if I don't have enough money for us to all go to McDonald's and go grab a burger, or if we can't all go over here and watch the movies, then none of us are going to go. Mm-hmm. In other words, I've always had, because of those experiences growing up with those kids in the apartment complexes, the idea that let's just all be good together. Let's just all go do things together. And that professionally, what that's translated into, I've always been the person who tries to surround myself with like-minded people. And I try to pour everything that I have into the people around me, my best friends, my family, my kids, my coworkers. All I want to do is help people be the greatest that they can be. I just want to pour into them. And that's really been the essence and theme of my whole career. Anywhere I've ever been, I want to make my boss look good. I want to make my teammates look good. I want to make my staff look good. I just want everyone to be on this journey together. I do not want to be on the proverbial mountain by myself. And we all go, or none of us go.
And that's contagious too, man.
That to me is the common skill set.
Yeah. And that it's extremely contagious behavior. And I saw that at its highest level when guys are extremely scared and you're training for combat, and there's just a lot of things that are unfolding, in those moments. And that type of leadership, you can trust it. you believe in it and you trust it. And when you put people around you that can believe in you and that trust you, extraordinary things grow. And I'm also so glad you said that, because I remember the first time we met you, you came to Denver and you were giving this speech, and not a speech, you were going through a ton of information. You were energetic, and well, I got a ton of ideas in this big old head of mine, right? I remember talking to you, but I'm also in real estate. But I was super direct, and I think I was just marrying your energy. And I'm so glad to know that you just want to pour into us and that you didn't feel obligated by intimidation to like help this big crazy guy in Denver with his goals, because and I'm being funny, but it's true, man. And I love being able to shed some light on this as far as how it helped you early on and still to this day, because we're going to get into later, how do you still approach every day like it's day $1 But I think you kind of answered it a little bit right there, because it's, no one's too big, but no one's too small. And the way you treated people early on in your career, where we're talking right now, is the same way you made Eli and I feel when we met you. Like obviously you're the big man, right? You're on top of our company. We respect that, and there's a lot there. And there's a lot of people as far as chain of command that's in between that, and a lot of experience, a lot of years. But you never made Eli and I feel like we were too small, even though we knew you were superior and we understand chain of command and who bosses are and certain things. You never made us feel inferior. It was always like, yeah, let's chat. You guys got a lot of great ideas. Let's give some direction to those ideas. And then cool. And then, hey, as those come to fruition, let's not just talk about it. Let's actually take some action. Let's package it. Let's put it together. And then we can continue those conversations. But it's something I wanted to speak to, because it made us feel really good to be a part of a brand when even the guy it's
surprising, man. Yeah, it's surprising, dude. And this is one of these industries, as I'm sure where you don't see a whole lot of loyalty, and in real estate, it is so easy to, you get recruiting calls multiple times a week. It is so easy for a person to be swayed to go to a different place.
I'm surprised real estate doesn't have a Tinder app yet. Like, oh, mad at your managing broker? Swipe right. Here's a new place. Want to go here? You don't like their color? Swipe left. Oh, you mad? Get back on real estate Tinder and go here. Like, holy crap, man. Like, But Jesus criminy.
But it's real easy to be loyal, man. When the CEO is taking time, and someone in your spot where I'm sure your calendar is jam packed with appointments and phone calls and fires and obligations. I'm sure it's so easy for someone to get caught up in, hey, I don't have time to talk to these two agents. But you seem to be the guy that understands that, hey, if I'm taking care of the people that are around me, and if there's people that are reaching out and I'm not there for them, then, it kind of crumbles. That's your foundation. Like, the agents are the foundation, man. If we're not out doing deals, you don't have a job. Our managing brokers don't have a job.
100%.
And very, very
100%.
few people in leadership understand that, hey, you have to make sure that foundation is rock solid. And if you see a little crack in that foundation wall, you got to get that guy out there to slap some sealant on that and take care of that crack.
By the way, we have a foundation thing with one of our deals right now. That's where that analogy.
Top of mind.
That's in real
time.
Top of mind.
Yeah.
By the way, it's getting handled by a licensed professional. And no, I did not run into the wall and create a crack, Chris. I promise. I was very careful. But going back into it, man, as far as where you were at, you had that job, you're in Silicon Valley, and you end up with Oracle. You want to kind of dive into that at all, or where that established you, or what that next step forward was?
Yeah, that was a great opportunity, just because I was entrusted with a lot of resource on the part of Oracle to say, hey, you're a global account executive, which means your role is to go out to these trusted customers of ours, big companies, Fujitsu, Hitachi, Siemens, some of the largest companies in the world, and you're our face, you're our voice. So you go out there and build a relationship with the CEO and the head of sales and the head of technology, and you're our person to go message what we can do and identify opportunities that we can help with their business transformation. And man, what an awesome responsibility. To be affiliated with one of the, an organization like that at that time and be entrusted with those resources and that responsibility was just enormous. And it just really, again, looking at my career backwards, it just instilled in me a confidence to say, man, you can help people change their perspective. You can help companies change their outlook. You can have a seat at the table to help people with their strategies. And all of that has been entrusted to you as an individual. Now you've got to answer the call. That means you've got to study. You've got to prepare. You've got to be sharp. You've got to be a great communicator. You've got to be a great listener. You've got to follow up with people. So, all of the things that, in some respects you're taught, in terms of, you're taught professionally, but a lot of that is just instinct and experience. And on the backside of that, it just, man, what the confidence that gives you to be in those kinds of settings with multi-billion-dollar global enterprises. And this was, nearly 30 years ago now. So that was just an incredible foundation on business and leadership and marketing and communications and sales and organizational transformation that really has carried me, to this very day. And then obviously going through the .com boom and bust and being at the epicenter of that meltdown financially and all the companies going out of business and, just all of that carnage as a young professional, that was also a learning experience. Like you made the comment, Will, in your opening, you think is a setback is really a, a benefit or an asset. And I would say that was one of them. Fortunately, I was young and I didn't experience any loss. I didn't lose my job. In fact, because of all the changes, we were better positioned, Oracle, as a big organization in the technology space. So I kind of came through the .com bust healthier, stronger, more vibrant, bigger financial opportunities. And that was great.
Can I ask how old?
Those are all great experiences.
Can I ask how old you were going through all that?
30 years ago, I was like the 70s, right? Why does it still feel like that? Do you ever feel like that, Chris, when someone's like, oh man, 30 years ago, like
the 70s,
hey, that was actually like 1990. Like you're thinking like, dude, Woodstock.
Yeah.
Why are we, what's going on?
So those years were, coming out of college, like 22 all the way till 30.
Man, so you were young with
early 30s,
going through all that, ton of responsibility.
Young.
Wow. And
yeah, it was,
what was families, and I'm asking selfishly, man, because I'm always looking up to, guys that I perceive as good fathers and good husbands. What was family situation like then? When did you end up kicking off the family and all of that? Because I'm always curious how that coincides with working as much as I'm sure, that took you to build up.
Yeah. Good question. So I moved out kind of full time to Silicon Valley from New York in 98. And I had met the lady that would become my wife, is still my wife now. I'd met her in 97, late 97, got married in 2000. So in the year 2000, I was 27.
Okay.
We got married and it's still doing good. And she's working and I'm at Oracle at the time.
Yeah.
And then I remember I just had this kind of aha moment. I closed a deal that I didn't think that I was going to close. It was a total bluebird. I put a lot of work into it, but I just didn't give it a lot of confidence. And the deal closed and I got the commission check. It was a big commission check, 6-figure net commission check. It was a big one. And those weren't uncommon, but this particular check, I didn't have a lot of faith that it was going to close. And so when it closed and that 6 figures came in, I was like,
holy cow.
What, honey, now's the time. Just stop working. We're going to start working on this family thing, put that, set that aside and did some other financial planning. And so that I was very fortunate and so blessed, particularly coming from a situation where my mom, and her, situation of sacrifice and raising us with, working 2 jobs. And I just always had imagined having this financial security and peace of mind before I wanted to start having children. It was like that commission check was almost that blessing, kind of a gift from God or a sign somewhere that says, hey, this is your peace of mind. And so we were very proactive that way. So that was like the year 2001, late 2001. And then we had our first baby April of 2002. So
you got to love a guy who's like so put together. Cause we were on Chris's podcast yesterday. I'm like, yep, 2 weeks in real estate, haven't made a dime, lost a buddy. Hey, we're pregnant. Hey,
right.
But it couldn't have, but for what that did and how that fueled me. And I've always just been kind of a cowboy, man. Like planning something too much might freak me out. And I would probably destroy the plan just to go with no parachute and figure it out on my way down. But interesting on your thoughts, and you're so intriguing to listen to. I'm like dialed in so much to try to pull stuff from you, because something I want to talk about real quick before we continue to push forward is you mentioned this project that you had going on, this offer that you were putting together, correct? I'm not sure. Is it an offer or a for that company that with the huge check? You're putting together a proposal for this company, or a bid, or
Yeah, well, I was working on it. You know, it was a deal that I was working on with one of my clients. I just didn't have a lot of faith that it was going to close.
I know that. So
yeah,
let's stay there for a moment.
And I'm like, oh my God.
I know, but what I really took from it was you mentioned very briefly how much work you put into it, but didn't have faith it was going to close. And there's something really freaking important about the amount of work and work ethic and performance that you need to have with yourself, not predicated on whether you think you're going to win a bid, or not predicated if you think you're going to actually win the starting quarterback role on your high school football team or whatever that is. But can you speak, to that specifically of how important or where it comes from for you of the work ethic and the effort and the ability to execute even when you don't think it's going to work out, right? Like there's so much pride in someone's character and someone's ability to just have the pride in their work. Whether it works out or not wasn't the point. It was how well you prepped yourself for that process. Can you hit on that?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point, brother. And I'm glad you stopped me and let's unpack that for a minute, because I think it is a critical takeaway. I think the most important thing is, and maybe, now reflecting on it, maybe it's a little bit of part of my scientific background, but here's the thing is we have to be detached, unattached, completely separated from the outcomes. And what I say about my scientific background is the fact that, the mind of a scientist is we need to prove it. I want to prove it. I want to show you what the result is. And I don't care what the result is. I'm more worried about the process.
Yes.
And because I can figure out the process, then I know I can anticipate or predict or make some modeling around the result. And so I guess my reaction to your question, which is a fantastic one, is I've tried to be, I haven't always been, but I try to be very conscious about not worrying myself with the outcome, really focused on the process and the things that I can control, right? I could control in that particular deal, my preparation, my effort, my energy, showing up, communicating, doing all the things that I could do. I knew that there were some things outside of my control, namely the board of directors that needed to approve the deal and some other people that were involved in the decision process that I didn't have a great relationship with. And so I thought, well, in some aspects, it's kind of a roll of the dice, but nevertheless, everything that I can control, I'm going to go all in. And I just believe that is something that I wish our agents were more mindful of from two standpoints. Number one is, especially right now, a lot of the anxiety and fear people have is rooted in the fact that they're taking a lot of energy from the things they can't control about this situation. I can't control the length of this issue. I can't control the medical parts of this pandemic. I can't control, but I take all those things that I can't control, and that's what I think about most.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying is, let that stuff go. It's so empowering to completely focus on the things that you can control and not even worry about the rest of it. That's where your power center is.
Right.
And here's the other thing. The second takeaway is this: I don't like that so much of our industry is levered up to a commission event. So in other words, I'll make a call if there's a commission on the other end of it. I'll do this on the condition of an outcome.
Yeah.
And that's just the wrong mentality. Like, I want to be completely and totally in the service of others, period. And I've always been wired that way. I haven't made every decision in my life because of that, but I just try to be mindful and stay in that state. Is how can I help the people around me? And then everything else is going to work out. It'll just come. I'm going to be unattached to the outcome.
Well, and believe it or not, especially in times, I'm sure you can speak to this because you were around from the get-go, but just with internet and access to everyone and access to knowledge and, the social media and the things that you can project and put out there nowadays, salesmanship or sales, right? It's relationships, man. Like, we were on your podcast yesterday and you were giving us compliments of, some of the numbers that we've hit, and we've never spent a dime on a lead. It all came from community in our sphere and, parents from my daughter's school and just interacting and being involved in communities. And, we said, hey, the process of buying and selling homes, that's sold. This is not multi-level marketing. I'm not convincing someone to take some meteor dust that's supposed to kill fat in 24 hours. I'm not convincing them of a product. The product is sold. Buying and selling homes, that product is sold. So if it's not the what, it's the who. And people want to know that you're honest. People want to know that you're consistent. People want to know that you're in it for the right reasons and that you care because they know you're going to approach that situation the best that you can, and you're going to find whatever conclusions you can, and you're going to represent them as best as you can.
Well, and I like that too, man. That resonates a ton with me, because with me and my personal training background, I really try to encourage people. I'm like, hey, you have to fall in love with the process. And I know that sounds cliche, but it's true. And most people don't really understand what that means. So what I would tell people, I'm like, fall in love with going to the gym. So if that means like taking certain supplements before you go, listening to certain kind of music, like changing environment just so that you're having fun and can enjoy that aspect of it. Forget how much weight you're pushing, forget the actual result, forget stepping on the scale. Enjoy going to the gym, enjoy having the conversations, just the process of going to the gym. Next thing you know, man, 3 months go by, you're going to look at the scale and you'll be like, holy crap, there's some results right there. And it went by like that. So to me, that's a great way for people to stay on point and to not focus on that end result, because you don't necessarily have control over that. You could have crushed on that deal and still lost and still missed out. You know, you lucked out and you got the commission, but something tells me you'd be in the same place you are today, even if you didn't get that deal, just because of your process of going about doing that.
And it's super important now. Like, I'm glad you mentioned that, as far as like, you know, just with COVID-19 going on right now, and just people maybe for the first time at scale, you know, feeling like they don't control tomorrow, or, and, you know, and they just don't know what's going to happen. And we talked about that yesterday, and I'm like, hey, listen, you never had control of tomorrow. This thing that's going on right now might be shedding light to you to just expose the fact. But even when COVID-19 passes, you don't go back to like controlling tomorrow. Like, that's just completely inaccurate. And, you know, but just imagine if people let that stuff weigh on them. Could you imagine if like the Marine Corps, you know, and these guys are getting ready for combat and knowing, hey, some people are going to die and it's not going to go well all the time. Imagine like, well, what if I'm one of the guys that dies? Why do all this training? Could you imagine the American military if they had that type of mindset? But just super important. Right. And I was so curious to see you say that. And I was always so curious to see like where that came from. And when you explain, you know, like the scientific background in labs, you're not going to control the outcome. But if you don't apply every proper step for whatever you're putting in that petri dish or whatever process is going about, whenever you get the outcome, you're not going to know if that outcome is even accurate based off what you were doing, because the process was skewed from the get-go. Yeah. It's tainted. And you can't have it. You have to apply a process perfect. That way, you know, when you're tracking all of that data, if it's tainted from the start, you don't know if you're getting false negatives over here, right? Like it could just be a bad situation. But it's so interesting to see how that thought process is so similar to yours, Eli, with fitness, and so similar to mine from a military background, how we kind of see the same thing from different perspective, but we're all applying it. And I think it's a huge lesson, especially right now with COVID. But moving forward, man, so you got this big check, but you didn't buy her a purse. You guys are saving money, right? And you're a good-looking guy. I'm sure you were fine with just your good looks. I got to buy my wife a purse, man. I got to keep her around. She's way better. She's smart. She's way better looking at me, man. She's a code writing guru like you. I'm so glad you're not my age, because you probably would have stole her from me. I'd be a sad country song right now. So everything works out for a reason. But so you guys are deciding to do that. You've got this big commission check, and you guys are starting your family. And what does that look like, man? Did you guys start super small? Were you know, what did your career look like at that point? And I'm sure you've got some fun stories as far as just managing careers and having poopy diapers and these little humans running around at some point, right? I'm sure there's some good stuff there.
Oh yeah. It's been great. So now we've got an 18-year-old daughter, a 16-year-old son, and a 13-year-old daughter. So a senior, a sophomore, and a seventh grader.
Yep.
And yeah, it's been great. You know, the kids are awesome. They're such great kids, and just so blessed. And my wife is the rock of the house. She comes from a great Italian family. Her parents were
back to this whole mob thing, and you being in New York. Every time something makes sense, I'm gonna say it. We're gonna do this whole scientific study on how many
connect the dots, man.
How many positives he's got, and then we're gonna find he's related to Tony Montana or something. All right, so wife's from the mob.
Yeah. Okay. That's why I'm dropping those Easter eggs.
What's your wife's maiden name, if you don't mind me asking?
Smith.
Fiorenza.
Oh, for sure. Way too fancy. Of course. Tell her I'm on the home team though, please.
Yeah.
Oh man, we got Fiorenza, Futia, Gagliardo, Galuzzo. We got the whole thing, bro. It's quite the environment for sure. But so that was great. And then So what happened was I built a great friendship with a guy at Oracle, and he and some of his buddies from business school were putting a business plan together to open a mortgage company. And, I just had that entrepreneurial, kind of fire, a little bit burning. And so I decided to leave Oracle with this guy. And we went up and they had, already kind of put the business plan together and just needed some other muscle to help, get it off the ground and
some
growing.
other muscle. And so, was this around 2000? Yeah. Was this around 2008 or so?
No, this was 2003.
So you did not cause the crash, is what I'm getting. I'm being funny.
No,
exactly.
Just everything leading up to it. That's all.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we did that. We started a brokerage that became a bank, and we were cranking.
Wow.
Now we were, we built it up. We were covering a 6-state region here in the western part of the U.S. And had 250 loan officers working for me. That was my responsibility, running sales, and the other guys, we kind of divided the responsibilities up. And then we did well. Obviously, the correction came in 2007, and so we lost one of our offices in Phoenix. But otherwise, we right-sized the business and did that. And then the guys wanted to sell the brokerage, and I felt like that was a good time for me to really go and focus on the real estate side of the industry, which is something that I had been thinking about. My cousin had made a career change from technology into real estate and went to work for Gino Blafari, who I had gotten to meet and start develop a friendship with. And so I really never even considered anything other than going to work with Gino, just because I had so much respect for the guy. I saw what he had done with his career, and we were coming out of the recession at this point. And so I said, hey, Gino, let's come together and do something together. And so he gave me some leadership responsibility. I took over the franchise division of Intero, and together we grew that organization to the 7th largest real estate brokerage in the United States.
Wow.
And then, Berkshire Hathaway called and wanted to buy the company. And so that happened in 2014. And then Gino and I moved over and became a part of the franchise group at Home Services. And then we ran the franchise company together from 2015 until last year, late 2018. And he got promoted into the CEO of Home Services, and I took the CEO role of the franchise group. So it's just been an interesting series of moves and progressions. And here's the interesting thing, and I've shared this with a lot of people too, is the only job I've ever had that I needed a resume and to interview for was the very first one out of college. Every position I took from there was based on a personal friendship and a relationship, and on the basis of what made the most sense and the chemistry that I had with those people.
And they probably knew what you were all
it's
about.
Been special.
Those relationships also know
exactly.
you're vetted. So it's like you didn't have to turn in a resume to a stranger so they can read what you've done on a piece of paper, right? And it's almost like reading a book versus being in someone's experience. But when you have these relationships, they understand exactly who you are and what you're about and what you've accomplished. But man, how crazy was some of you almost sound like the Dana White of real estate, man. Like you took, like, literally nothing existed and you guys are building that, and you're building something else, and then it gets sold to, like, the big man per se, but you're still running it. Like Dana White, they sell that thing for $4 billion, but he's still running it.
And I'm curious what that's like, man. You and your buddy Gino on the grind. You guys known each other for a while, and then you got faith in each other. Hey, let's build this together. And you're grinding out and doing your thing. What's that like when the phone rings and it's, hey, this is Berkshire Hathaway.
Hello, this is Warren.
And we want to buy your business. What's that like, man? How'd that feel?
Yeah, that was kind of crazy, because we were rocking and rolling, and didn't really know. I didn't know what it would mean, really. I just didn't know what it would mean, and would there be a position for me over there? What would I do, and who are the other people there, and what kind of politics enter the equation? Because Intero was privately owned. We didn't. It was just a small group of people, and we could make decisions quickly, and we had complete autonomy.
Yep.
No one telling us what to do. We were just marching, running as fast as we could go. And in fact, the crazy thing is, in 2015, when I joined the franchise side of the business, I could have stayed at Intero and taken a job there and done whatever, various roles would have been available. But my love and trust and appreciation for Gino was so strong. The only role that was available at the franchise company was for a franchise salesperson. So I literally started at the entry point, franchise sales and nothing
door to door.
I was proud to do it. I was behind to do it, but I had no ego about it. But it was just interesting that I knew that just stay the course, add value, help Gino, do whatever I can, regardless of what it says on my business card, bring all the, tools and skill and energy and experience I have to the table, and everything will work out. And, 4 years later, I'm the CEO.
So I feel like Eli's learning some stuff here. I feel like he needs to do whatever he can to bring value to me, to make sure he moves his way up on this train.
Well, I like that, and that's similar to
Is that what you're saying, Chris? I
think so.
I feel like you're just speaking to me.
I'm the janitor right now, but someday I might have a spot in this company.
You better start making my bed, Eli.
But that just goes to show, man, what a humble dude you are, and you're not driven by ego, and you're not driven by title or anything like that, and that's really, guys, like I just hope you guys that are listening can take that to heart, just to realize, hey, just get after it and just kick ass and literally put your all into whatever it is that you're doing, and understand that where you are today isn't where you're going to end up. This isn't a forever thing. This is a chapter in the book. And each chapter leads to another chapter and leads to another chapter. And so many people aren't willing. I mean, I'm sure that was probably a step back for you, man. I bet just knowing business, your income probably didn't go up that year, right? Like that was probably a little step back for you.
Yeah, no, I've taken many steps back. But again, it's about, to me, it's just never really been about anything other than being around great people and adding value and contributing. And I'm sure that if other people were to see my path, they would have made different decisions. And not to say that those would have been the wrong decision. And you could debate my mentality and philosophy any number of different ways, but it is just the way that I'm wired. I really lean into my relationships with people much more than I do, again, the outcome or the paycheck. And I've just always been primarily motivated by helping, the people around me become better and add value. Well, you're right, I don't know, whatever it is that I feel like a lot of people, particularly younger people or people that are having some challenge in their life is, you operate with a language of self-talk. And the self-talk is very powerful. It's the most powerful thing that drives people's success or failure. And, you're either a victim or a victor. And when you're a victor, the victory is not the opposite of a setback. A setback is part of victory. And for whatever reason, people self-talk is that the setback is the opposite of the victory. They're the one and the same. I was telling a group of our agents that I was on a call with earlier today that I said, hey, embrace the struggle, embrace the anxiety, embrace the uncertainty. Because you know what? Each of those things is keeping another person that's competing for the same food you're trying to eat from doing the things that you can do.
Yep.
So embrace that those things are there, because that if those things weren't there, you wouldn't have opportunity.
Correct.
So embrace the reality that those obstacles are there. That is your opportunity door. Well, you just have to open it and go through it.
And just endure. Just endure longer than the next guy.
Here's the deal. Even like adding something to that before you embrace it, you need to accept it. You have to accept it before you can embrace it, because let's use COVID for an example. Hey, whether you think it's fake, whether you don't, whether you think all this is crap or not, here's the deal. You're not at work. You're not doing showings. You're not going to the store if they don't want you to go to the store. It's real. It's here. It's real. Yeah. Whether you think it's for BS reasons or not, great. Doesn't matter. Yep. It's here. Yep. Right? So same thing, like a car accident. You can sit there and bicker about who was at fault, but if people are bleeding out and legs are broke and someone's head's off, problem. Right? So, hey, accept what's going on. Embrace the fact that we need to do whatever we have to do right now to get through it. And then whenever this dude's head gets put back on, We can have a conversation of your conspiracy on what happened.
Yeah.
And that's fine. Beetlejuice ran out and you had to swerve and that's why you hit someone. Fine. But it doesn't matter right now. So I love that embracing some of those struggles, and in the Marine Corps we call it embrace the suck. But I think before you can truly embrace it, you just have to accept that, like it or not, it's real.
Yeah.
And just own that.
Accept it, embrace it, and understand that it's a necessary part of it. And for me, I think part of the reason that I love doing what we do, which is just business, I'll call it, not even real estate, just the game of business, is from weight training, I got so comfortable with the fact that, hey, because I failed at this weight, first of all, I pushed myself to my limit and then had a buddy help me through with some forced reps. But I literally got excited every time I was able to push myself to that failure, because I know, okay, I finally stimulated that muscle enough to where next time I'm here, it's going to be stronger and it's going to be bigger, right?
Interesting.
Like,
I've never had a spot before. I've always just handled.
But just having that understanding of like, hey, this failure is a direct correlation to the success that I'm going after. The whole reason that I'm here at the gym is so that I can hit this point of failure. It was just so just natural for me. Cool. Failure equals growth. Failure equals growth every single time. So I started chasing that failure. And in business, man, there couldn't be a better lesson than that, to actively go and okay, a little failure. Awesome. What did we learn? Cool. I'm not going to make that mistake again.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to say it. I want to get your thoughts on that too, Eli, because I almost disagree with you a little bit, but I think I'm just stuck on the word of failure, because I think what you were hitting was a point of exhaustion where your body just didn't operate anymore, and then it got stronger. And that's one way to look at failure, but then there's also failures of like you don't accomplish something or you make a mistake. And for me, sometimes, and depending on the type of failure we're talking about, because I have a little bit of a hard time when people get overly happy about their failures. And I think there's like this stigma in today's society of like being happy about failures. I'm not happy about failures at all. And I just got to be honest. I'm not happy about them. But I do understand that when I'm growing, there's going to be things that I'm not prepared for. There's going to be some level of unknown. So I embrace them and I accept the fact that they're going to be there. But they don't make me happy. But I do see what you're saying when it comes to the gym, because you literally brought your body to max and then it was forced to fail. So that failure feels like an accomplishment.
Correct.
Because it's anatomically correct. I mean, you brought your body to a max exertion.
Yep.
Awesome. And then the next time when you do it, you lifted 5 pounds more at the same rep. And it's almost like the accomplishment was the failure when it comes to gym. But in other realities, depending on how you're looking at it, like I don't want people to get stuck, or maybe I'm wrong, but they just failures with business or with relationships, and I understand they're going to happen. I embrace them. I want to move forward from them, and I analyze them. I'm not happy when they happen, though. And Chris, I want to get your opinion on that too, man, because you've got the bird's eye view with a lot of things. But we've had a couple of, even just some of our friends, when we've heard them, within the last 8 months or so talk about them, some people just seem way too happy about a failure. And I don't know if I'm just strung the wrong way, but I'm just like, I'm all for adapting and moving past them, but like you laughing about it and being happy to fail makes me feel weird.
That has the opposite effect. If you're actually like happy about it, then that pain that you should feel, which causes the change in behavior, because really it's the pain from the failure that causes the change. Yeah, if you're happy about it, you're not feeling the pain, which means you're not going to experience the behavioral change.
Pick a side, Chris. I want to remind you who I am. But pick a side.
we are talking the same thing, though.
Carefully.
We are talking the same thing, though.
Yeah, I think it's a function of which side I would choose is a function of what's the issue at hand.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no glory in failing in a real estate pursuit, because in this business, you're either first or you're last. So
Ricky Bobby, credit.
I think it's just a function of, what is the situation? What's the issue at hand around the failure as to whether or not it's positive or negative.
Very good leadership response to make us both happy. I love it.
You like that?
You're under the gun right now. We're live. You're under the gun and you're just draining threes, and I love it. Now, I do want to get to something.
That's having 3 teenagers.
Yeah, no kidding,
Listen,
right?
The reason I'm so happy to have some men in my life.
Call it 5 teenagers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because of him and I.
Yeah.
Dad is right. You can tell us both to shut up. It's more than okay. But something that I kind of want to, and this is also, relationships are great because all this business and it's great, but who you are bleeds into everything, that you do. And it's fun to have some of you guys, that are ahead of us. Like, I know I talked to John Dovenbarger a lot at Berkshire with the office that we operate out of. And him and I will go back and forth and just kind of have some good stories about kiddos, and his kids are older than mine. And obviously he's a little bit older than me as far as a father. And it's fun to be able to like, just resource some of these guys that are a little bit ahead of you that you respect, that just might have a little bit more poise because they're a little bit more callous to situations where you think something's a big deal. Maybe it's not because they've been through it, but it's incredible. And I want to hit on that because when we were on your podcast yesterday, we got so many comments when I was giving moms credit and just throwing some props out there for how awesome moms are. And then you kindly, you made light that literally the idea like his wife led him to is like why he's good. Obviously, like mine had a very huge role in just the way she saw me and what she thought I would be good at. And then from there, but we've covered a lot in business with some successes for you. If we could go back to where you were starting your family, I would love to hear not only how we see how your business grew and what you accomplished, but can we marry up the family side and like where your relationship grew, where you guys got better as parents, where you got better with your marriage? What were some of the struggles that you guys had, but how did you overcome them? Because what I'm starting to notice as I want to make sure that I grow like that in the same manner. Like I don't want to be the successful guy, but it sacrificed my family. And from the sound of it, it sounds like your personal life, your marriage, not error-free, right? I'm assuming none of us are error-free, but I'm so curious to just get some insight on what that side of the road looked like while you were growing the professional.
Yeah. It's, really everything for me starts with my wife, Monica. I mean, if she weren't who she is, there's no way that I'd be who I am, and I got so lucky in, finding her and us, building our family together in the sense that she's very focused on our family. She's a very traditional mother. She comes from a very traditional background in terms of her parents and her whole family, immigrating here from Italy. They are very grounded, centered people, her whole family. And her whole focus is our kids and their health and well-being. And she lets me do everything on the professional side. So every move I've ever made professionally, every move we've made, physically, and, what we do with our finances and things like that. There's never any, there's collaboration and discussion, but from that standpoint, it's a very balanced, kind of relationship. And quite frankly, I don't know that I'm necessarily a hard person to get along with. I wouldn't say that, but I just being, in an intense career and from time to time being under varying degrees of pressure, her calm and her kind of, traditional nature is really kind of the anchor of our whole situation. And I would say that as parents, we very much agree on just philosophy and how we've raised our kids and where we put the priority in terms of education and athletics and, the friends that they choose and the time that we spend together. We do a lot together, our whole family, all five of us, and we always have. It's a close knit, really that's the most common comment that people make about us when they see us out together, not our family, but friends and other people when we're out, is how close all five of us are. And I think that's just a function of, just the environment and the tone that we set as parents.
And there's a lot of
very close,
but to get to that level of seasoning, like let's use Eli and I as a couple, for example. Him and I have had our discussions. He may have slammed my door a couple times, Chris. Definitely not me.
Not you. No, not at all.
I'm a thin mint. Yeah. I'm a thin mint. But hypothetically, let's say he slammed a couple doors and a couple discussions, but we were always in it together. It was never a point of like him and I breaking up with the business, but definitely some obstacles in communication and learning each other and being dedicated to each other. And obviously we all know through marriage, it's tenfold, right? And so for you guys to be that successful, I love hearing it, but I know there's got to be some days where you are a knucklehead, and she's Italian. So was your laundry ever out in the yard? Did she ever happen to have a knife cutting steak in her hand and you said the wrong thing? I got to get a funny story out of you of like, a fun lesson learned, or where you just maybe have had some growth?
Well, there hasn't been much of that. Nothing really, nothing funny for sure. Here was a crazy situation when my daughter, our firstborn, was 18 months old. We were up in Tahoe. It was Christmas time, so it was snowing out, and our daughter had a peanut, and she reacted to it. So we found out right then, in the midst of just like a blizzardous snowstorm up in the mountains of Tahoe, 2 days before Christmas, that our daughter was going into anaphylactic shock at 18 months old.
Oh my God.
And so, rushing her in this snowstorm into the hospital, and her face all swole up like a basketball, and she was 18 months old. We didn't know she was going to die. We didn't know. And, and then dealing with that peanut allergy and all that goes into just like the sensitivity of the eating and the preparation and all this stuff, man, that has been a huge kind of like galvanizing part of our family. And then the crazy thing was, my son doesn't have a nut allergy, but my youngest daughter, she too has it. And then when she was like 4 years old, she started having epileptic seizures. So my youngest daughter, Juliana, and she has the nut allergy too. And so, just dealing with adversity through the lens of what it means to your family and your children has been very centering, I would say, for us, in the sense that it just keeps things into perspective. And, I can only imagine what the parents and families of children with really significant health issues, because I wouldn't call our kids' issues significant compared to a lot of the other tragedies that families have to deal with. It just creates a perspective where you don't sweat the small stuff. You know what I mean? We just don't sweat the small stuff, and we just try to keep a perspective about what we're doing as parents. And just, I would say that it has that, dealing with that, here's what it does, is it creates a level of maturity in the type of conversations you can have with your kids. Because now you're dealing with a 2-year-old, 3-year-old kid, telling them about the severities of eating the wrong food that can kill them. Now, you wouldn't normally have that conversation with a 2 or 3-year-old child. You don't normally. Now, my youngest daughter starts having epileptic seizures when she's 5, 6 years old. Now her brother and sister see that. Now they're young kids. Now you start talking about death and the reality of medical conditions and things like that with children at that age. It just instantly elevates the level of dialogue that you can have with them about anything. So now they come into the teenage years, and you're talking about drugs and alcohol, and we're just able to have a very real, frank, candid conversation with our kids about whatever it is. It doesn't matter what it is. It's just honest, it's truthful, it's candid. And I would say that the blessing of the issues that we've dealt with on the health side have created that level of mature conversations that we're able to have with all three of our kids. And I think they're better for it.
Well, it makes you guys realize that tomorrow isn't guaranteed.
Well,
right?
Kids are resilient. I've seen a lot of unfortunate things as a police officer, and I'm sure it's not even as bad as other stuff is out there, but just from the lens I can speak to, man, just kids are resilient. They can handle a lot more than people give credit to. And like you said, based off of your circumstances, you really didn't have a choice but to just expose them to that. But then what a blessing in, wow, how much your kids can handle, how mature they become from it. And just from a couple standpoint, like I've still got Chris, believe it or not, I saw some friends that like they've been together for like 8 years and they don't have kids, but they got dogs. And I just laugh. I just laugh at them. I just laugh. But it's so fun because I do think having kids together, it brings a relationship to another level because you're both trusting each other to commit to kiddos and doing the right thing and committing to the right thing and being in this together. And it's such a wonderful feeling when you can go home and man, you've got someone who's got your back no matter what, as long as you're good to them, not mistake free, but you're good to them and you're doing the right things and you're doing everything that you should be doing to contribute to that relationship. And then you've got kids on top of that. It brings a relationship to a huge level. But I'm so glad you hit on the kids stuff because obviously with some things that are going on now in nowadays society, there was a whole thing of like sheltering our kids. And I don't think that necessarily at scale that was the appropriate response. I don't really know where it came from, but it seemed like it was kind of at scale across the country. And based off of circumstances that are going on right now, I think all of us are forced a little bit more to just have those honest conversations and just be a little bit more real. But I think in reality, the bigger picture is that a lot of youngsters are just going to be a lot more prepared for what's to come, because it was necessary to maybe expose them to some of those conversations.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%. Why we don't want to keep you too long, but I want to hit on one more chunk, if you're cool with it, Chris. We've kind of heard like that, like your start, your literal day one $0 and the path that your life went down. I want to. It's a 2-part question, and then I've got one question at the very end. It's a really good one for you. We're gonna save that, but this 2-part chunk, and Eli, if you want to add in, more than welcome. But we definitely want to hear, how do you approach. And we kind of heard how you approach every day like it's day $1 You're still giving, you're still adding value to every single person, but where the drive, like how you have not forgotten how to approach every day like it's day $1, and then just where your career is headed right now, or where the brand of Berkshire Hathaway is headed right now, and if you could throw some forecast toward that for us as well, that'd be phenomenal.
Yeah. Well, here's what I have a burning desire to help impact. Okay. Every single year, the National Association of Realtors surveys buyers and sellers who have closed a deal within the last 12 months. I think it's the most compelling, comprehensive view into the key behaviors and trends amongst buyers and sellers that's out there. And every single year, they ask clients, would you use your realtor again? And overwhelmingly, 80, 85, 90% of the time, the clients say, yeah, absolutely. In fact, if you go back 10 years ago, 2009, NAR asked all the buyers, hey, will you use your realtor again? 87% of buyers said, absolutely. Well, this year, 10 years later, we ask, did you use your agent from the previous transaction? And only 12%, only 12% say that they do.
Yep.
So that gap between 90% who desire to be loyal and 12% that actually are, I call that gap the loyalty value void. There is no customer loyalty in this industry, and it speaks to a lot of the nuance of what you talked about before. There's no loyalty between the agents and their brokers. And it's just this carousel, just this revolving door of transactional mentality that I think is the biggest competitive threat to our industry. That gap between 90 and 12 is where all of the billions of dollars in quote unquote disruption is aimed at unraveling the value that great real estate agents like you guys are, and the value that you provide to your agents. That's where that disruption is aimed. And so I've got a mission. I'm on a mission to make sure that every single person that's within the Berkshire Hathaway Home Services family is aware of that void, accepts that void, and takes personal responsibility to make sure that they close that gap in terms of their own business building activities. And here's the thing, right? There's a couple of things. Number one, a lot of agents would say, I get 100% of my business from my referrals and past clients. And I say, well, that's fine, but that's not the point. Do you get 100% of the business that's available inside of your network of past clients and referrals? And the answer to that is absolutely not. In fact, I think most realtors only get about half of what's available, because as you know, there's 4 or 5 other realtors that are also appealing to those very same people. Okay. Here's the other thing. The other thing is that most real estate customers, they don't transact enough real estate with enough frequency. The average right now is every 10 to 13 years. Because there's not enough frequency in the transaction, buyers and sellers don't develop enough muscle memory to understand where is the value. What is specifically the value that I'm paying for? Therefore, the realtor's job needs to be more educative. It needs to be more instructional and prescriptive around all of the things that we do that provide value. Because in the absence of a value metric that consumers understand, then they don't know what your value is. Then they're going to go, of course, compete
race
on
to the
price.
bottom.
They're going to go shop on price.
Race to the bottom. Absolutely.
And so that's what I really want is I want to make sure that the real estate consumer understands that our quest is to close this gap by articulating and exhibiting our value and delivering on that value, and recognizing that if they want to go somewhere else because it's less expensive, that they can go make that decision just like they can in any other industry. However, there's going to be compromises just like in any other industry. You're going to make compromises to pay less. And so I think there's nothing more deserving of our time and attention as an industry, because in the absence of this mission, we will continue to be marginalized, and our role and responsibility will continue to be commoditized, and we'll continue to see the compression in our revenues and value. It's just it's going to be a natural thing that happens if we can't do this right.
It's got to be value, and we shed a lot of light on that on your podcast the other day when we were talking about the example we gave of our buyer presentation / experience, and I've kind of walked some folks through that, and then we also spoke about how that can become video content, and how you can build value at scale through your social media platforms with how you're doing it in person. But and then just you've also got to expose, like, you're supposed to be advising. You sometimes you have to teach people how to look for value, and we like with these flat rate places and different stuff, it's just something that you have to combat. And we've had people ask for a price reduction, and this and that, and I say, hey, listen, Kev, I'll sell your house for $1. More importantly, let's sit down and let's go over this process. Let's make sure we give it the care that it's needed. Let's make sure you're okay with the outline and the process that I have prepared for your situation before you even give me $1. So I don't even address when people ask for discounts, or because they've been kind of shopping around and maybe they haven't spoken to me yet, or it's a referral, but they were already looking at some other discounted places before, I contacted them. The bottom line is like, hey, if there's something financially that's a situation, I'm okay with that. I'm going to help you out. But I want you to see that, hey, and the reason why I say $1 is they know I'm not being literal, but what I'm trying to get their attention to is like, hey, I'm not going to make the price the obstacle. I want to make sure you understand what's entailed with this process, and I want to make sure that you're confident in my ability to execute it before you put a price on myself or a price that you're willing to pay. And believe it or not, when you go through that, we're not getting 1%. We're not getting rock bottom down. Yeah, we give some discounts here and there, and it's all good because we're averaging 2 to 3 referrals closed per our clients. Like, we're okay with that, but it's just about understanding your role as an advisor and being able to lead people. And maybe when they're looking at $1, don't just have this obstacle in front of you and you're addressing it and it's a back and forth or a negotiation. We hear a lot of realtors talk about that. Like, yeah, no, that's always negotiable. Like, well, that sounds terrible. Just identify that that's not the conversation yet, because whether I sell it for $1 or not, if you haven't let me prep, if you haven't let me expose you to a process, and if you're not confident with my process, don't give me a penny. Let's be here first, and then let's put a price tag on it. Let's build some value first, but you got to understand how to articulate, how to be comfortable in those conversations, and you got to understand how to articulate that. But like you say, Chris, if you're caring for people and you understand how important it is to give them the value and the knowledge and the importance of behind this process, you're okay to have that conversation. All good. Yeah. 100%.
As Mr. Buffett says, price is what you pay, value is what you receive.
100,000%. And I'm glad you just said that, because forecasting for Berkshire would love to. So that's your personal goal and what you desire. Where do you feel like not only maybe the industry, but specifically to Berkshire, where do you see this going the next couple of years? And is there some light you could shed for us?
Well, I'm always inspired and motivated by growth, and it's not just growth for the sake of growth. It's that I believe that, not me personally, but the output of my leadership and the essence of what I'm trying to accomplish should result or manifest in an environment that's better for people to be affiliated with. And so the scorecard, right, of what everything that I'm trying to pour into our network and our vision is people being attracted to it. And so, from that standpoint, I want to continue to see us growing. I want to have a legitimate business presence, leading market share presence in every single market that we operate in around the globe. And I know that Berkshire Hathaway has what I call the halo effect, the affinity of the organization and the awareness around the world. And so we need to meet that in terms of the real estate piece. Berkshire Hathaway Home Services needs to do its part to meet that affinity and continue to attract the very, very, very best people in the industry to be a part of this network with us.
That's something huge that's in the Marine Corps. Like something that's very says, Chris, my dad was protecting the Marine Corps from me. or like he didn't want me to, like when I was first starting to talk to him about going, it was like, hey, Will, I need you to understand that guys go to the Marine Corps to be a Marine. This isn't about college or who's going to pay for what. And if you get a GI Bill on top of it, hey, that's great. However, when you're going, here's why you go. And I've always been a fan of that. I've always been a fan of just having having people that were, the right fit. And in real estate, we all know this, right? You could pretty much hang your license wherever you want because you pay to be there, and that brokerage is going to get a cut of your commission, or if it's 100% brokerage, they're going to get some type of transaction fee from you, but something's getting paid. So we've got this because of that. There's been, at least from our lens, there's been a mentality of, agents running around to different brokerages wondering what that brokerage can do for you. When in reality, what you need to understand is a great place wants to know you can hang your license here and it's all good. But we've got so much value and so much culture here. What are you going to do to contribute to this brokerage? And I promise you, from my experience, from the Marine Corps, from infantry, for everything that I've done, that mentality of, hey, this organization is going to be okay whether you're here or not. What's important is that you do all you can to provide something of value to this organization. And then the long version of that is how much value you get in return by doing your part. Unspeakable. But if you don't understand that, you're no good here, because this isn't like, well, what can you do for our brokerage? This isn't about sales. This isn't about anything. This is understanding. If you're coming here with the mentality to give, if you're coming here with the mentality of what you can do for others, you're going to get so much back in return. And if you can understand that, you're going to be a great fit for this organization. And I think that you guys embody that. Hence why Eli and I are proud of it, and we're here and we're around it, and we love it, man. We love it.
Well, and the $1 million question from me, Chris, before we go. Berkshire or Berkshire?
Yeah. Does it depend on who you're talking to?
Will was killing that thing, just murdering it yesterday.
What?
It's Berkshire.
Berkshire.
What? Hold on a minute.
Man.
Hold on. Now, listen, my mom's an English major, so we just got to talk about this. If it's Berkshire, then it's also Worsh and water, not water, not wash. Okay, like
that's Nebraska slang.
If it's going to be Berkshire, it's Midwest Berkshire. Then it is. Did you wash your clothes? Did you wash your hands? Water? Did you wash the water? Look. But
it's an English word, so you can thank our British friends over there.
Gotcha. So they do say Berkshire.
What's that?
They do say Berkshire.
I feel like, listen to me.
Man, I'm so disappointed.
No, hold on a minute.
I'm so disappointed.
Chris, listen. That's old. That's European. That's Old English. That means if you're from there, you say Berkshire.
That's like King James version.
Yeah, if you're from the Old Testament, you say Berkshire. If you're from Denver, Colorado, you're gonna say Berkshire. And I do it on purpose so people know where I'm from. It's just I'm being accurate.
That's too funny. All right, well, glad we finally got the answer, man.
100%. Any last words that you want to leave these listeners with, man? As far as just if you're on the beginning of your day $1 if maybe you found some success, but you might be off the rails a little bit about resonating with approaching every day like it's day $1. Any last pieces within the ideology that you want to leave with everyone?
I would say that it's all about creating a great foundation. You got to create a great foundation, and be excited about learning whatever you're doing. One of the most frustrating things I experienced with salespeople, particularly younger folks in their sales career, is they get up and I'm motivated to go read this book or read that book or listen to this podcast about whatever it is, and they don't even take the time to read the contract of whatever it is they're selling. They don't even take the time to read the industry statistics and understand the backdrop of what's going on in their own environment.
Yeah.
And it's just such a wasted opportunity where people don't become the expert of what they are doing right now. And I always imagine this, as salespeople, we're always looking to get to the next level, and I always picture and try to get people to imagine, young salespeople, to get to imagine that your career about getting to the next level is about jumping from where you are to the next level. And if you're going to jump, imagine you're standing on a platform and you've got that next level that's out in front of you. It's 5 feet in front of you and 2 feet above you. Think about what's the foundation of the platform that you're on. Is it solid? Is it thick? Is it sturdy and solid? Or is it just nimble? Is it just like a piece of rope or a thin little stick. So build the platform wherever you are. And sometimes that's the value that you're getting. So you don't always measure the scoreboard isn't always dollars and cents. Yeah. Sometimes the scoreboard is process and learning and discipline and reading and information. And I just get so aggravated with people that don't even take the time and discipline to read and understand what they're doing right now. And I think that's an important lesson for particularly some of the younger folks starting their sales careers, whatever they're selling.
I think it's huge, and I think just the visualization and just a mindset going into it, and something I speak to sometimes, and I use professional sports, and we, because we idolize athletes, and we idolize, like when you hear the Ray Lewises and the Tom Bradys, and we're watching the ESPNs, and we idolize how much film that they watch, and like, the passion Ray Lewis has for film is just asinine, and you respect it and their craft, and it's glorified, and it's football, and they don't see their family, and they're working weekends, and they're training, and all to be the best at the professional level of football. And something that I really try to hit hard on is, why aren't you considering yourself a professional in your own industry, right? Or if you're not there yet, why don't you have the mindset of, if you can watch on TV what it took a guy to get to that level as a professional, and all the academics and the film and the training and the recovery and the rest and the food and the time on the field and all of that stuff, we idolize it with athletics. We idolize it in Hollywood with what it takes for when we respect a guy that goes into character and is like weird for 14 months before they film the movie. And it's like, it's so respectable. And I think people don't realize, hey, you can actually approach your own life in your own industry with the same amount of intensity, and you can actually be a professional within what you do. But you've got to understand the workload and the amount of intensity and dedication it's going to take to get you there in yours, like it took for them to get in theirs. There's no difference. There is no difference. But sometimes it's just our mindset of what we're going into. Like, hey, apply that to your own life, and you'll be surprised where you go.
Yep.
My man. Well, Chris, hold on the line for a quick second, man. We're gonna chat with you right after this, but we're gonna exit this out and wish everybody a happy Friday. And hey, guys, if you got any questions for Chris, if you go on to any Berkshire technology websites, and it is websites, right? It's not websits. It's websites. Hey, boss man, I don't want my kneecaps getting hammered off for saying something wrong. I just want to make sure we're good to go. But if you guys have any questions for Chris, if for some reason you can't find a way to reach him, obviously reach me and this knucklehead right here. We'll make sure we for the right price, we get your question answered, and we want to wish you guys a happy Friday. Any last words, Eli?
No, man.
Right on.
Appreciate you guys listening.
Right
Day
on.
$1 podcast out.
I'ma sip it on down and turn